This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
How important are domestic cups, and is the EPL better without VAR? We'll tell you next. Welcome into Sports Source Premiere. I am Will West alongside Chris Carroll. What we do is EPL in 20 minutes. We do it every single week here on the Sports Source Digital Network. Chris, let's get started with it. League Cup matchups this past weekend. Here is my question for you. How important is the League Cup anymore?
It depends who you talk to, and it depends what team you support. I completely understand if you're a Liverpool fan, for example, or one of the top six. So Liverpool, you're going for the Premier League, or top four, Champions League, Europa League. With all that going on, you've got to prioritise. And so I understand the League Cup might be like fourth on your list, fifth on your list. It doesn't matter so much. That might apply to 6 teams annually.
Yeah.
6 teams.
Well, there's one of those 6 that it still applies, that it does not apply to.
I'm being generous, but let's say 5 or 6, let's say 6.
Yeah.
Out of 92 professional clubs. So 6 of them don't prioritise the League Cup. The other 86, they got two chances of winning silverware every year, realistically, and still it's a long shot. They've got the FA Cup and the League Cup. So as a Wolves fan, I'll speak for the other 86. The League Cup is really, really important because that's the only chance, other than the FA Cup, that we're going to win. Wolves, in my lifetime, Wolves have won 2 trophies. They've both been League Cups, once in the 70s, once in the 80s. Now, without those, we'd have nothing. Yeah. Now, the players who played in those finals and won the Cups, they are legends of the club. They put the club on the map. Everybody who went to those, it's like the magnificent day out at Wembley. It's still it's part of the makeup of Wolves now. So clubs, the 86 clubs that aren't in the top, that are too rich and play in these European trophies every year, that they have to put the League Cup at the bottom of the priority list. 86 of those clubs think the League Cup is wonderful. It's been going 60 years. Leave it alone. It's part of our English calendar. If you're one of the big boys, you want to play your reserves, play your reserves. You want to play your 23s, play your 23s. If you don't want to play in it because you've got too much going on, don't play in it. We'll carry on as normal.
Neil, I'm a Spurs fan. Since we have had live EPL matches here in the United States, Spurs have not won a trophy. If we would have won League Cup, and I know it did not go incredibly well at all for us against Liverpool on Thursday, had we won that League Cup, I would be acting like I just won the Stanley Cup, and I'd be dancing around my living room.
Absolutely.
That's exactly how I would have. And I understand Spurs are supposed to be a big club, but we aren't, and we don't behave that way. So that would have been a massive moment for me. Think about Newcastle, right? Newcastle, it will matter so much to them to win League Cup for those fans of Newcastle, because we're used to Newcastle for half decade to a decade being in kind of relegation battles over and over again. And now that they have new ownership and different management, Newcastle, they compete towards the top, but it's not like they've arrived yet. So for them to win silver would be absolutely enormous. It matters to them far more than it does Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not just the record books, it's the experience, it's the day for the fans. I was lucky enough to go to both those 2 League Cup finals. Nice. And I remember them. It was just a fantastic experience, you know. And so, and that's 86 clubs. Wolves, one of the lucky ones. There's probably 70 clubs who've never had that day, you know. And you try telling them the League Cup, if they get this close to having a chance to win the League Cup, that it's not important in the English calendar. That's hugely important. So yeah, the big boys all, you know, don't feel sorry for the big boys who, you know, they've got their trip to Wembley for those guys is an annual occurrence, and you don't hear the voice of the smaller clubs that don't get there. You don't hear their voice because the big boys are the ones making the headlines. So yeah, they put the League Cup down, but 86 teams out there in England put the League Cup up here.
We had the League Cup on through in the middle of the week. We had the FA Cup over the weekend, which meant we had no VAR. Do you believe that the English Premier League would be better served not having VAR like we had this weekend?
No, I do. I thought it was a breath of fresh air watching football, soccer this weekend without VAR. In fact, it was a bit of a jolt because the ball would go in the net, and I'll be thinking, wait a minute, let's not celebrate too much. Is it going to get pulled back? I think it was a breath of fresh air. I think VAR, I'm done with it, quite frankly. It was brought in to eliminate mistakes, and VAR are making mistakes, and that's even worse. That's more frustrating when you got a guy who's slowing everything down in a booth, watching on a television, watching it 5 times, still gets it wrong, and your team and every team's been sawn off by. But I remember Wolves getting sawn off about 4 times last season, and every Monday Gary O'Neill got a sorry from the head of the referees, and it cost Wolves about 8 points. Now, I know it swings and roundabouts, but it hurts more when you've got VAR making a hash up of it than a referee on the day making a mess of it, and you just take it and you move on.
My problem with VAR is not necessarily that it exists, because I think there's a way to do it where it's unintrusive. How you do it, to me, it's the way they're doing it. There's almost like a pageantry to what they're trying to do with VAR. And I understand that there are traditions and there's pageantry that comes with English Premier League soccer. Mm-hmm. There is no scenario where someone, if they're competent, who is a replay official, needs more than 10 seconds. And if it's a clear and obvious error, 10 seconds, yes or no, did you get it right? We should know that fast. I don't need you to walk out and give me the square. I don't need all of that. We do the same thing in the United States. So with baseball, they make a big deal out of the replay. With the NFL, they do that. There was a college football bowl game, I think in 2008, where they tested doing every play real-time replay. And so that's what we call it here in the States, is replay, not VAR. But it was magnificent, and it was never in the way. And they knew within 5 seconds exactly what needed to be changed and what didn't need to be changed. If they got the spot wrong, if they missed a penalty, if they got a penalty or called a penalty that didn't need to be called, within 10 seconds. So why are we doing this whole song and dance? And part of it might be maybe we have less tech-savvy people who are officials who are doing this. I don't know what it is necessarily. To me, it's not VAR that's the problem. It's the implementation of VAR that's the problem.
You're right. It's bizarre. It's bizarre because if a qualified referee has to look at an incident in a penalty area for 2 minutes to see if there's a touch,
that's too long,
see if it's a foul, it's not a foul.
Yeah,
it's just not a foul. If a foul isn't a touch on the toe, it's a trip or a push. If it takes that long, it's not a foul.
Before we get to our next topic, Chris Carroll, you are from Wolverhampton in England, now here in the States. Tell the viewer a little about yourself.
I am, yeah. Born in Wolverhampton, brought up in Wolverhampton all my adult life, all my early adult life, and got into coaching. Came over to the States once or twice. Fell in love with the place. Had some opportunities out here. So, yeah, now I'm here in Knoxville of all places. Who'd have thought? It's funny how life takes you. But, yeah, I have a recreational program called Carroll Sports Academies, coaching kids from the age of 3 to 13. And I have a competitive soccer club called FC National here as well. Yeah, so loving life in Knoxville.
Yeah, my name is Will West. I'm a sports radio host in Knoxville, Tennessee. Never grew up playing the sport. Frankly, a lot of my friends did because I skated, and they played it, and I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And then one day I finally got exposure to European football, and that blew my mind. I was thinking, well, you Euros have been hiding this from us. This is amazing because American soccer is not particularly good sometimes. Mm-hmm. But then I realized, so the MLS is about like AA baseball. It's just not an incredibly high level of play. So once I saw the EPL when it came here, I said, that is something that I can get behind. And have been absolutely locked in since, and we're glad to be able to do this show.
Yeah,
all right,
fantastic.
Next topic here, Chris. Give me your prediction. 4 teams to make the Champions League, your top 4, and then give me the 3 you think will be relegated this year from the Premier League.
That's a good season this season. It's nothing set in stone at the moment.
No.
Probably apart from the top 1, in my opinion.
I think Liverpool's probably run away with
Liverpool, the way it looks right now, Liverpool first, Arsenal second. I don't think they're going to change.
And then we get weird. Right? From there, things can change.
This is a surprise. I think Forest are going to hang on.
Okay.
I think Forest hang on for third.
Third?
Yep. And then the fourth one's Newcastle.
Oh.
Yeah, because Newcastle just seem to be the team at the moment that have got it going on. They got some consistency. They seem to be in a good place. They've got a good blend of skill and steel. They've got some muscle in that midfield as well, and all through the team. So I really like Newcastle. Man City, I've kept faith in Man City for so long, but the change in them is just so weird this season. that I don't see them getting any better. Chelsea seem a bit unstable to me at the moment, and I see them, they're unpredictable. So yeah, I'll go with Newcastle for the 4th place.
All right, so I have Liverpool. I agree with you. I think that's already over. I know from a numbers standpoint, Arsenal are still in this, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Liverpool's going to finish this off. Arsenal's going to finish 2nd. Then I have City finishing 3rd.
Do you?
I've told you over and over again, Pep Guardiola is a horror movie villain.
Yeah.
And until I see the credits roll on the final play of the final match of the season, I will not believe that Pep Guardiola is going to be out of this. I can't fathom the idea of City not being in the Champions League. So not with all of that talent. They're going to figure something out. I don't know what it is. Grealish is going to get motivated, after having a child or whatever it might be. De Bruyne gets healthy. They'll figure something out. They will make it. They're going to finish 3rd. And then I don't know if you paid attention to the final matches of May. Forest takes on Chelsea at Forest, May 25th. And I think that match will come down to who finishes 4th in a Champions League spot. I have Forest hanging on.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of it's Forest just seems more consistent than Chelsea does right now. Plus, when I go through the matches that they have left, a lot of the more difficult clubs are early on in their schedule. And they have a little bit of an easier road than Chelsea does down the stretch. And that final match is at Forest. And I think that's going to make all the difference in the world. 3 teams do you have being relegated?
Relegated. Well, this is more in hope. Being a Wolves fan, and my heart might be rolling my head here. But
wait. Before you get this, as a Wolves fan, give me the worst moment you've ever suffered through as a Wolves fan, the most painful moment for you.
It's got to be. There are a number. There are a number of them over the years.
You
but
said that with a seriousness.
It's got to be in the 80s, the dark times of the 80s. Wolves were in the 4th tier of English soccer. They'd gone down in almost successive seasons, and were about 24 hours from going out of business. And it didn't look good at all. And then, amazingly, they stayed in business, gradually climbed up, due largely to a striker called Steve Bull, who's an absolute hero in Wolverhampton, who broke all sorts of records, played in the World Cup for England when he was in the 2nd tier. And him with a partnership, him and Andy Much, they rescued Wolves basically, and came from absolutely going out of business to Premier League today.
As a Spurs fan, my most painful moments, whatever comes up this weekend. So that's what I'm always looking forward to. 3 teams you think are relegated from the EPL this year?
Well, it looks like Southampton are gone. Ipswich. You know what? This is where it gets.
You feel like Ipswich can?
They could. I love Ipswich. I love what Kieran McKenna's done for Ipswich. He's taken them from third tier to 2nd tier, 1st year, successive seasons. If Wolves weren't that 4th team, I'd love Ipswich to survive, because I think what he's done is fantastic as a coach. But I'm going to go with Ipswich and Leicester. How they're lined now, it'll be the 3 teams that came up, going back down. I just think Wolves have done well in the transfer window to see him out of trouble, but who knows, really?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same 3 as well. Yeah. Part of it is, isn't it interesting with Leicester to see that Leicester, because as long as we've had live EPL matches here in the States, Leicester's been a fixture, at least mid-table, right? And then they put money into renovating King Power Stadium. They don't have money to bring on players. They get relegated. They get promoted again, and I think they're going to be relegated again. Part of it might just be also how many times, knowing you, peeking in on Wolves matches because of that. Every time Wolves get into relegation territory, the next 4 matches, they'll reel off 7 points somehow. And so Wolves somehow survive every time. They're not the horror movie villain. They're like the final girls, what they call it in horror movie, where they always seem to survive. And I think Wolves are going to survive.
Yeah, they sort of end up in the wreckage, but just manage to get out of it. Yeah, but you know what, Leicester, they'll take it. What they've had in their recent history, a Premier League and an FA Cup. Who would? There's 86 teams in the league who will take that.
Who would love to be where Leicester's been the last decade or so. All right, so let's talk about my team. We talked about your pain with Wolves possibly in relegation. Let's talk about mine. Ange Postecoglou still not out. And a lot of the talk was, well, there's still 3 cups he can win. Well, in a 48-hour or 72-hour window, we lost those matches. Not just lost, you're up 1-0 on Liverpool, and you get beat like that in aggregate. I am shocked that he's still there, and it comes down to my original thesis when we discussed this during the first show. I believe that Spurs don't have options, or they would have fired him. Part of that's I watched Levy run Jose Mourinho, and so that's part of it. I don't know who would want this job. I don't know who you can bring in to work for another 3 months, and that could win at a high level. And you get concerned, I think, if you're Levy, that if they're in relegation territory or get really close to it, then it's Levy out. So I think Ange is still at Spurs because there's a lack of options right now.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Levy's regretting that Mourinho move, and he's thinking, while we're still in a trophy and last eight of the Europa League, don't fire him yet.
Yeah, again, I'm a Spurs fan, so I assume Levy's running the team at me, right? So it's a directly just to insult me with every decision that he makes. So there's that.
Yes. So looking at the bigger picture, there's a lot of moving parts to this. There's a lot of parts to this Spurs situation. So there's the Levy, there's Ange. Is he being stubborn and in the way he plays, etc., etc. I've never been one for injuries being an excuse, but it's got past the joke, quite frankly, with Spurs. I mean, as another fan, I don't really care about injuries, but I've got to say, Spurs are absolutely decimated.
They've been
It's just game after game after game. They lose another player and lose another player. So, Ange says that they'll be better when those players come back. They're starting to come back. They've got to be better. You've got to be better when they come back because there's some good players that are out. They're not just fringe players that are out. They're good players that are out injured. So they've got to come back. Things will improve. Hopefully in time for this before the Europa League run gets going and you get a few players back to get through to the next round. So I can see why he's not gone yet. The league's gone. Why not throw everything at this Europa League? Now, if that doesn't work out, then Levy can make the decision then.
Also, again, I don't know that anyone of quality is going to want to take this job right now. So there's no reason for you to be rash when it comes to this. It seems like you're safe from relegation. So I don't know that a top half the table finish is going to happen. And honestly, that's an ice cream anyway. It makes you feel good for 5 minutes, and then it melts in your hand. Just finishing top half the table when you're Spurs. So that's not what you're aspiring to if you're a Spurs fan or if you're Spurs. So there is no reason outside of just emotional satisfaction for you to get rid of Ange right now before these players come back. Because again, I don't know that there's an improvement on the horizon who's willing to take this job mid-season.
Well, you look for that improvement each week in the players. You look at the forward line. You look at someone like Son. You think next week he's got to take those chances. He won the Golden Boot a few seasons ago, not too many seasons ago. Yeah, so you know what he can do. Kulusevski, love him. There's goals in the team. There's goals on that forward line. They just look like rabbit in headlights whenever they get in front of goal at the moment. So you think next week's going to be better next week. And Ange must be thinking that too. They're going to start taking these one-on-ones. But not happening yet.
All right, final topic, match of the week, upset of the week, and our target man, one player we're targeting to have a big match week this weekend. Let's start with your match of the week, Chris.
No, my match of the week, not because it's Wolves, but it's top and bottom, so there's big implications. Liverpool against Wolves. Liverpool, people have been looking for a stutter. It's not going to come this week against Wolves. They're flying. So they're going to cement, they're just going to be one game closer to winning it. And Wolves could end up back in the bottom three. So implications there, both ends of the table.
I'll take Newcastle and City. Part of it is the winner of that one, it might be the difference in someone making the Champions League, someone not. So that's going to be an enormous matchup. And the idea that maybe City could lose another one like that at home would be very, very concerning to me if I were a City supporter. Upset pick of the week.
Upset, I got Everton away at Palace. Everton 16th, Palace 12th. Kind of under the radar, Moyes gone back to Everton.
Yeah.
And they're now 9 points clear of the relegation zone. I mean, they couldn't buy a goal, Everton, before. Moyes comes in, same players, they're scoring 4s and 3s and, scoring at will. So, Palace doing well as well, but I just think there's an opportunity.
Palace is an enormous favourite in that one as well.
Well, yeah. But the way Everton are away, but just the way they're scoring goals, Palace a bit hot and cold. I got Everton as causing an upset.
I actually, so if I was a betting man, I would say Forest at Fulham. So I don't know why Forest is the underdog there, but they are an underdog this week. But for the other side, United against Spurs, they're going to win at Spurs. As a Spurs fan, I assure you, United's going to win at Spurs this week.
Would that be an upset?
It is technically, according to the sports books,
right?
it is an upset as well.
Wow.
So those are the ones that I went with. Your target man, one player you're targeting to have a big match week this weekend.
Jared Bowen, West Ham. I think he's underrated, Jared Bowen. I think he's dragged West Ham along on his own pretty much for a year or two. And I know they had a great year winning the Conference League in Europe, but he goes under the radar. I think he could play for any top team, and he's stayed loyal with West Ham for whatever reason. And he can score from anywhere. He crops up wide, he crops up in the box, and he makes himself a chance. He's confident. So he's come back from an injury. He scored last week against Chelsea. So, I've got him as my man.
I go with Justin Kluivert of Bournemouth against Southampton this weekend. Who among us has not put a goal in against Southampton this season? Also, he hasn't scored in the last two matches. Right. So I just think this will be the one after having, I think, 3 goals in 2 matches right before that. He's due. They're giving him opportunities there at Bournemouth. And Bournemouth I think they continue to fly high despite what happened in that Liverpool loss.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's Chris Carroll. I'm Will West. Like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you agreed or disagree with anything we had to say here on Sports Source Premier.